Welcome everyone to the Inside Word. My name is Lachlan McLean from Beer Cartel, Australia's #1 craft beer retailer. Today's episode is in celebration of International Women's Day. And with that, I'm signing off and handing over the reins to Beer Cartel's very own Holly Slater.
Hello to all our listeners. I'm Holly Slater. In honour of International Women's Day, I'm excited to share this podcast and empower females in the craft beer industry. My journey started in 2016, working at a craft beer pub in the inner west of Sydney. Fast forward to 2021, I've well and truly fallen in love with the industry. Today I'll be talking to Rose Kentish and Kari Allen, co-founders of Sparkke, the all-female run and led craft brewery. We will discuss the challenges of being a woman working in a male-dominated industry, their unique business model and their passion for inclusivity, as well as their drive to inspire female involvement. To begin, we talk about why they opened a business and how they both got their starts in the industry.
So, Holly, I'm one of the two co-founders of the company, and I've actually got no. At the time that we created Sparkke, I had no background in the alcohol industry at all, and really what happened is that Rose and I started a business that we wanted to prove a model really that put values at the center of a company. And our values were inclusivity, social equity, authenticity, and raw truth, and a passion for excellence. We were really looking at the millennial market because it's the largest new market that is shaping the world. And there's some really beautiful research that says that 47.7% of the market, so almost half of it, want to buy from companies that authentically practice inclusion marketing. And that is actually marketing that is not aspirationally male, pale, and stale, or aspirationally white, regardless of gender, or aspirationally cisgendered. We really wanted to develop something that was actually going to be genuinely, authentically inclusive. And Rose is a winemaker, and so alcohol was a natural area of expertise for her, although not brewing. But she'd had her life experience as a female winemaker in the alcohol industry. And we started really through the weird tangential conversation with somebody else, completely unrelated, looking at the beer industry. And what we discovered is how profoundly male-dominated the industry is, what an oligopoly, or actually a duopoly it is, where it's controlled on both sides, the making side and the distribution side, by two companies. So it's a very hard industry to operate in, and it's a deeply, deeply conservative industry. And also from a global perspective, the beer industry in Australia is one of the most profitable in the world. So all of the challenges around thinking of doing an inclusive company with a new model that was a social enterprise model, it was the very difficulties of that made it interesting and appealing. And we really felt that if we could build a company driven by values in an industry that is frequently seen as the dark player, with no redeeming social value, and proof for inclusivity, that we would be achieving something really, really special.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really well thought out answer. Very interesting, actually. I agree with so many of the things you're saying. I've had so many bad experiences as a female in the industry, even from females that just don't want to listen to me about, you know, anything I have to say, basically, because you know, why should I know anything about beer? So you know, that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm quite aggressively passionate about, actually. I don't stand for any kind of you know, working at the bottle shop in our Tarman at Beer Cartel, we'll get customers saying, you know, is your boss around? Can I have a chat with him? And I'm like,
girl.
and I'm like, no, you absolutely can't chat with my boss. What can I help you with? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna help you whether you like it or not. So this is what I'm here for. You can leave if you want. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to see companies like yours that are being created. I think it's so important. I think because when I first got to Australia, that was just 5 years ago, even in that short space of time, things have changed for the better, and I'm really happy about it. We have still got a long way to go, but it is happening every year. I find that more and more, you know, I mean, stereotypically, it's the older Australian men, for sort of 40 plus, that have the kind of mentality, in my experience, that are like,
yeah,
you know, they'll say things like, "Oh, what kind of girly beers you have?" Because I want to give my wife one, and I'm like, they don't mean any offense by it, but I've kind of become quite accustomed to just saying, first of all, women's beers don't exist. She might like stouts that are 12%, and she might like this, which is 4%. You don't know. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing, and yeah, thank you again for taking the time to talk to me, despite the initial what's happening. Yeah. So, do you have anything to add to that, Rose? Like about your kind of experience in
yeah, I think just from a product and flavor perspective, we really wanted to make brews that were really approachable and sessionable and delicious, and on top of that, and this might sound like a strange thing when you think about beer, but we wanted to make all natural brews, and so that means not adding any sulfur or any kind of preservative or even any kind of antibacterial agents that go into cans before they get beer put in them. So,
yeah,
you know, that requires real technical, it's quite technically difficult, and a real determination to stick by our guns on that, because it's a lot cheaper not to do that. It's a lot cheaper to bang in chemicals and preservatives rather than the expense of tunnel pasteurizing, which is an all-natural way to achieve the same results, for example. So not only the approach to the recipe development, but also which products we made were, you know, especially when we were launching at the beginning, but it's definitely part of the conversation all the way through, is what products can we make that actually will attract people into brewing that don't normally drink brewed products, beer, non-beer, whatever, you know. And so when we first launched, we launched with 4 products. Only one of them was a beer. The other 3 were apple cider, hard lemonade, and alcoholic ginger beer. So we really wanted to speak to people who enjoy delicious brews, or might, if it wasn't necessarily a hoppy bitter, heavily hopped bitter experience, and bring them in. So we were wanting to help grow the market, grow the craft market with really delicious brews. And so thinking outside the square, I think, for Kari and I's new entrance into the brewing industry, but with deep experience in thinking about what people want and making delicious products, alcoholic products. We tried to think more broadly about what we want, what young people want to drink, what our friends want to drink, and what might be more accessible for people who didn't have necessarily beards and tats and stuff. Like what's actually delicious and really approachable. And you know, a lot of the craft market is built on bitterness and as many hops as possible and as high alcohol as possible. We wanted to have quite a different conversation that was about, you know, sophisticated, delicious, all natural, sometimes lower, sometimes lower in alcohol, but but sessionable products. So that's kind of a very conscious approach that we have taken in building Sparkke and building a range of products. And that doesn't, we've got a brew pub here in Adelaide. We bought an old pub that used to be like a stripper joint, titty bar kind of place, and turned it into a really, really fantastic, what all public meeting houses should be. There's not a TV in sight. We got rid of the pokies and the pokey license. It's a place to come and meet and enjoy good brews. And we also put a little brew kit in there, an 8-hec brew kit. So we do brew and then pull through directly into the pub all sorts of fun and wacky things that are outside of what we can get into can. We don't have a canning line in there. So we're all about playing around with flavour and, sometimes higher alcohol brews and things like that. So we're really capable, deeply capable in that space. But actually what we want to get out to the market, and we sell our beers around Australia, is more sessionable, delicious, and all natural brews.
So why did you want to come up with the idea of all natural? Was that because you've experienced something different and you thought, I don't really like this, I want to create something different? Or was it more just to do with what you saw a gap?
Just being aware of what we're putting in our bodies.
Yeah.
If I'm drinking a cider, I don't really want to drink concentrated apple juice. I want to drink the real deal.
Yeah.
So we source fresh apples from the Adelaide Hills, crush them on a Monday and throw champagne yeast into them on a Tuesday, and they're fermented, a week to 10 days later, they're ready to can, and they still taste like the fresh crushed apple from the Adelaide Hills. We haven't thrown sulphur in to preserve them, nothing. We've tunnel pasteurized it to make sure that they're stable, and into can, into keg, and out they go to market. So we've taken a lot of pride in that, and we've won the top award by class 3 years running in the National Cider Awards as a result of really sticking to our guns around that. It's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to add apple juice concentrate and flavours.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper.
Or sulfur.
And sulfur in order to not tunnel pasteurize. If you just add sulfur and use Velcorin, which is an agent that a lot of companies use. So just discovering these things and going, you know what, I actually don't want to put something that behaves like Roundup into my body. I'd rather, go a direction that is a natural process of heating the product at a held period of time, enough to keep any active yeast that may still be in there, so that we can sleep at night knowing the product's going to be stable. Whereas other people just zap it with a product like Velcorin, which kills the bacteria. But, weirdly discovering that even products like a lot of the kombuchas on the market, which are all about the natural bacteria that are supposed to help with gut health, have actually been zapped with these products.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
So how do they actually work if it's part of the packing company's requirements? And all of these brewers and people are just signing up to get this done. So we really operate in a way that is true to our values as a company, and our job is to communicate why all natural, delicious, sessionable bevies are the way to go.
Yeah, perfect.
I think the other thing is the challenge of doing that is that we're not the stereotype. That we do because we believe it aligns with our market. We believe that it is truly consistent with our values, and excellence is a serious focus for us in everything that we do. But we have conversations all the time about, but why aren't you doing more beer? Or where do we put hard lemonade in a Coles, Woolies, outlet? And the truth is that actually that's not how we think. we aren't trying to solve for Coles and Woolies needs. It's not that we wouldn't love to have that kind of volume, but in fact, we are really focused on who we are as a company. And one of the reasons that doing the brew pub was such a milestone for us is that it was a way for us to show the market nationally, and I'm talking about the wholesale market, just who the brand is and how it lives in an environment. So our brew pub has a bottle shop in it. We're licensed for 636. We got Best New Restaurant of the Year last year in Adelaide. We got Best Renovation from the Australian Hotel Association, South Australia, and we just won the Best Commercial Design Award from the Australian Institute of Architects, South Australia, and now we're in the National Awards. And all of that recognition is a recognition that our values in operation are incredibly successful commercially, and have a strong appeal to the market. And it's just beautiful validation for our approach. You know, we built an alcohol-focused environment that allows people to raise the bar just by walking into it. You know, where you drink, what you drink, how you drink, all has a profound impact on yourself, the people around you, and society in general. And, you know, we certainly don't believe that alcohol solves social problems, but we are a company that actually fully is prepared to have a dialogue about the negative impacts societally of alcohol. But you know what? Milk doesn't solve your problems either. You know, alcohol's not necessarily the enemy here. There are profoundly good things that it can bring to the table. And we are very, very focused on bringing out the good in alcohol in a massive industry that is kind of the social glue of our society. And we do that through our brew pub, and we do that through the quality of the products that we develop, both those that go in can and those that go in keg. And we don't feel restricted at all to brewed products. We're here for the long run. We're going to open more brew pubs, and we are going to stay committed in terms of the quality of the products that we produce, and hopefully over time build strong long-term relationships with our wholesale partners, because we're up for anything with our partners.
Perfect. All right, so just moving back to the whole sort of females in the industry, the second question I wanted to pose to you both was that do you feel we've got a long way to go in terms of stereotypes and sexism surrounding women in this industry? Do you think that we're where we need to be?
Do you want to start, Rose? Because you'll be the voice of reason, and you're still going to say, yes, we have a long way to go. And then I can go in and be dynamite.
That's the question. We have a long way to go. The fact that you're still being asked when someone walks in the door, where's the boss? Or I want a girl's drink. You know, it shows that we've got a long way to go. And
well, yeah, those are just my sort of personal experiences. I could talk to you all day about them all and moan about them all and say, you know, for God's sake.
We see it all the time.
Just, I suppose, from your point of view, because you're owners, you're, you know, creators. I'm part of the industry, but I wanted to know what it's like at your level, whether you still get it, whether you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because we might be the owners of the business, but we're in it and around it every day. You know, I run a tiny team of makers, and you know, we're in and around it every day, working alongside it. The way that that exists even within the makers of the industry, not just the consumers, and you know, we still, in the language that's used between the male and female brewers or whatever is just always, from our perspective, about calling out when there's language that doesn't support the obvious knowledge in a way that a man would never say to another man or something like that. So, my support with my team and the way that we communicate is always about calling that out when you're being spoken to like that. And, we just had an example the other day, of an external brewer who kind of went, duh, this equals this equals this. And it's just like, you would never see that. So, it's not limited just to brewing, but I think brewing and this industry is, it's steeped with history around men and pubs and drinking and whatever, in a way that probably makes it more amplified as an issue generally, but it also makes it ripe for the conversations.
100%. No, yeah.
So yes, I think it has a long way to go.
I agree.
I think we're two founders who've not been invited, but we have nonetheless pulled up 2 seats at a table that is deeply dominated by men. That is not just on a making front, that's on brand and marketing, that's across the board. There are some real standout exceptions to that. So I'm thinking of people like Sean Sherlock from Foghorn, who are as inclusive as we are. But, our brand so challenges people that it's hilarious. You look at some of the names that are given to beers in the brewing space with not even a thought, not even a consideration of whether or not they're biased, whether or not they're actually sort of gender exclusive, whether they're appropriate, whether they're profane, whether they're, and people get their knickers in a twist because we put RESPECT on the front of a beer can and talk about inclusivity and respect. So, we find that kind of thing absolutely hilarious.
It is. I have heard people talk about the cans because it does provoke debate. It provokes it. That people are saying, they're so aggressively this and aggressively that, and I'm like, well, but why is that a bad thing? Why is it not okay to promote and be supportive of these things that they're trying to get across? I don't understand. I think people are uncomfortable with having those conversations, which it is funny.
Yeah.
I think that's interpreted as aggressive when, Kari and I started the conversation that developed into the business because we're raising teenage kids who are having these conversations all the time and very opinionated, very strong. And we felt we'd actually made our cans quite playful. And
definitely.
We wanted to ask questions rather than make statements, and we wanted to spark conversations, which is where the name came from, rather than determine a final point or whatever. We just wanted to, help our generation and our, kids and the world feel empowered by having a conversation rather than feeling like they had no effect on the world. And so we were trying to say, how you spend your money, what you spend your money on is how you feel empowered. So if you choose to buy from organisations that practice inclusivity and diversity and they pay money forward to causes that you love, that's empowering. If you just give it to the standard businesses that are just about profit and stuff the environment and stuff the community and whatever, so profit is the absolute only requirement, which is, what capitalism is usually built on, then you will feel disempowered because you're not part of affecting the world that you want to live in. So these are the kind of, very broad and conversations that we had. And interestingly, you look on social media or you have conversation with any friends and with my friends, the conversations are a lot more aggressive than anything we even get close to. We really workshop and think a lot about the generosity of conversation we're trying to have on the cans, and make it thought-provoking, but make it playful, make it engaging.
No, I agree with you, and I that's how they came across to me. I don't see it as something that's trying to tell you off. I see it as something that's trying to provoke a conversation.
Yes.
And a lot like we've had so many customers pick them up and buy them, and they're like, oh, it's a bit different. Like, what's this all about? And I think that's great. And I really support what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. So
I think part of it is also we try to be witty.
Yeah.
So we're not saying you have to align with us. We're saying here's an issue, but you think about our to be or not to be can with our black IPA, and the back of it says bees are nature's sex workers. It's because they cross-pollinate, all of that sort of stuff. So Rose used the word playful.
Yeah.
We try really, really hard to be playful,
Definitely.
Spark conversation, and we approach it with a lightheartedness because it is not meant to be that. And the one time we have departed, I think our most difficult can message ever was change the date. Oh my God, people were just having hysterics over that. It was quite entertaining, but challenging. But I think the time that we've been most, Rose, wouldn't you say pointed, has been our climate change is a burning issue.
Yeah.
And we happened to release that red ale in January when the Adelaide Hills and Kangaroo Island and the entire east coast of Australia were aflame. And we just felt so profoundly
we needed to respond.
Yeah, that we needed to be very honest, and we will frequently hear that the people don't want to have to think about anything when they're having a beer. But the reality is that the most important conversations in our culture happen at the pub, in the backyard barbecue with your hand in the can, when you and your friends or your partner or whatever are sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon in the backyard chatting. That is where the conversations of our culture happen. And that is a part of our mission.
No, I agree with you. I mean, people get, very heated when they've had a few beers and they talk about controversial things. So, yeah, I do think that people absolutely think when they're having beer, maybe not the first one after work, but after, after a few, definitely. And you're making sessionable beers, so if they're on their, third or fourth beer, they're going to be talking about some, political stuff sometimes. So with regard to the third question, you kind of answered that in part already, but I just thought I'd pose it to you again with the challenges you've faced with this company that you believe are solely due to you being a female.
Okay, I'm going to answer it a little bit differently, and then I know Rose will have something to contribute because we both have shared experiences, but we have separate experiences. And by the way, there's nobody in the world that I would rather be on the front line with than Rose Kentish. She is phenomenal. But it's true. She is phenomenal.
Amazing we can still say that about each other after 4 years, isn't it?
Four really hard years.
Yeah.
So there are two specific things. The first one is that all of the machinery that supports all the infrastructure, all the distribution channels, all of the gatekeepers and decision makers, they are 90% or more male. in the industry. So every single thing that we do every day is requiring that we jump through higher hoops, harder hoops, and we have to be more right, and have to be more fearless, and we have to be more insistent to get anywhere. I can honestly tell you that if we were not basically fucking bulletproof, we would never have gotten out of the gate through our first year, had our first brew pub open, and now lived through COVID. So we are essentially elephant hide.
That's really inspiring though for me, because I'm not going to stop at the level I am now. I want to keep going, and like to see people like you that are just like, you know, I'm not taking any shit. Like, you can do what you can have your opinions, but I'm still doing what I want to do. And it is a shame. It really is, that you have to feel like you have to be a lot harder, because, you know, otherwise you're going to get walked all over, or you're going to get knocked back and things. Do you think that it's been it's a harder journey for you with this company because it's female owned?
Yeah, absolutely. No question. We get told what is okay for us to say. We have sons, nephews, fathers, brothers, husbands, lovers, etc. We have all of this, and we love men, and we're frequently described as men haters. You know, so if we would only do this, we would be better. We would be more successful. We would be okay. We'd be easier to swallow.
Makes my blood boil. It really does. Oh, for God's sake.
But we have found that there is a silent community of women, very silent, quite silent, that actually draw a huge amount of inspiration from us. And there are sisters, people who are marginalized, disenfranchised, not acceptable because they don't conform. They're our family. You know, they're the people who believe in our shared values. They're our family, our community. There are a lot of people out there that we impact. And I think the trick is to get things like our distribution mechanism sorted so that they can find us easily. You know, to work with great organizations like yours to say, okay, put all of our brands together. People are going to come and find us. If you put this here and you put this there and you put this over here, they're not going to necessarily find us because we're a ginger beer, we're a lemonade, we're a cider, we're a couple of beers. We're not 15 beers in one brand. And
I don't believe that's a bad thing. If you do fewer beers well, then you can be, you know, if you're consistent with all of your products, then that's far more important than having lots of beers.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's lots of, you know, we have about 15 beers from a few different breweries, and I just look at them all and I think, are these all going to be equally as good as each other? Because they're such different styles, and I think that it's actually preferable for me as a consumer, at least, to have a brewery that I know that when they bring a beer out, that it's going to be really consistently good, and you just know it's solid, and that's all you can hope for, really. So I think that I don't think it matters that you don't have as many products, because they're good quality.
Yeah.
Which is more
Rose,
important.
did you want to answer that from your perspective?
I mean, I think you've covered lots of what I would say. The thing is, I guess, it's not just to reach the end consumers. Sometimes the very challenging thing for our brand. So we do spend a lot of time speaking on social media and engaging with our community. But the gatekeepers are the buyers. in the bottle shops, particularly, and especially at the moment with COVID, even more so, because all the on-premise stuff is almost gone. And so if a lot of them are male, pale and stale as well, a brand like ours is very challenging. So even if consumers want it, they can't find it. And that's kind of just really to Kari's point with distribution. If we can somehow get over the gatekeepers who are, you know, would find a brand like Sparkke, even though the brews are delicious and, you know, tick, tick, tick. But if they don't want to have a brand that talks about things that they socially don't agree with or are challenged by, they can just say, no, I'm not going to buy that in here. I'm not going to put that in my store. So that's a real challenge that we get because of who we are, who the brand is, like the style of that, of the preparedness to put our values on the outside of our cans. And you don't get that if you just got a cool, you know, door painting or you know, just a very simple sort of style branding. You don't get that kind of initial resistance that leaves people all crack and pour. But if you've got someone who's not aligned socially, they're just not even going to let you open the can, let alone put it on the shelf. So, you know, that's something that why we like to play differently. Because in some ways, you know, our messages are too risky for some of the very traditional people and outlets. So playing on socials, playing with, you know, third-party retailers online who are not afraid and who want to be part of a future conversation, and they want to engage with millennials who are the decision makers and world leaders within the next 5 to 10 years. It's those organisations that we're deeply aligned with and want to play with, and where we think we naturally should be.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
And we're cheeky.
Yeah.
We are cheeky. We have, like, you know, we used humor a huge amount of the time to kind of diffuse some of the pressure. So we'll make little jokes about, oh God, let's do a campaign, hashtag too risky for Dan's, and things like that. Because it keeps it lighthearted, it helps us keep it in perspective. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's
No, that's really informative. Yeah, I'm getting a lot from this. Thank you so much again for chatting to me. So, although I've had a lot of negative experiences in the industry, I've also had like increasing amount of positive ones as well. So,
yes.
Have you noticed that there have been positive changes since starting off? Have they gotten more frequent, and are you taken more seriously than you were? What kind of positive changes have you experienced, if any?
I don't think they've changed that much, to be completely honest with you.
Really?
You know, if you're looking for
And I don't even think it's that we're not taken seriously. In fact, I think that our social messaging is scary to some people, as we've talked about. So I don't know if we're not taken seriously. I think, so I don't think that's changed. And we've won awards right from the get-go for the product and stuff like that. But I haven't seen the numbers, so I'm not sure if, for example, women involved in the industry, has that grown? Because that's one of our big champion points, is to really be a platform for females, whether it be in marketing, sales, brewing, cooking, whatever, within our industry. And certainly the Whitmore, Sparkke at the Whitmore, which is our brew pub, we're really big on that. And we've actually got a brewery that's very open so that people can just chat to the brewers, and that the women there and the women behind the bar who are making cocktails and the women who are in the kitchens, the kitchen busts out into the restaurant area. And we've certainly got lots of guys too, but it's very much about supporting women who want to be in this industry. And I haven't seen any recent stats as to whether that dial is moving. I do know that chefs, the number of female chefs is reducing. I do know that the number of female brewers in Australia a few years ago was at 3%. I don't know if that's grown. I know in winemaking that 10 years ago, it was probably 14 years ago, the number of winemakers, female winemakers in Australia was at 15%. And about 4 years ago, it was at 8%. So that's reducing. So
Okay.
I do see that some of the data is not moving.
Okay, yeah.
But what I do hope and what I do see and what we do here, because we do so much engagement with our community, whether it be online or just speaking at events, Kari and I have spoken at stuff actually all around the world, is that we get a lot of great feedback that we are empowering, and that it is great to see women step forward and be brave in this space, not just as business leaders, but being in this industry, which, you know, is traditionally very male.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's hopefully we're having a lot of positive impact just by the next generation and our generation just seeing that. And by seeing that, they can then imagine themselves doing that at some future point.
What do you think the future of females in the craft beer industry looks like, and what advice do you have for women who want to succeed in the industry? So just, whatever you think about sort of the future of it, and any advice that you might have for anyone wanting to do the kind of things that you're doing.
All right. Well, we're on a global mission to be the best known, best loved, best supported female-founded alcohol company in the world. And we welcome inclusivity and diversity. And we are always up for contact from people and creating a community of support that really just embraces the notion of inclusivity. So one of the things that I think is really important is that women entering the industry find other women who can help support them, so that they have a place to take any of the challenges and workshop them, which is not to say you don't engage with men. I'm not saying that at all, but find somebody who's going to back you. And when you're feeling like you're being gaslighted, can confirm that you're not completely effing off your mind. But I do think that we will continue to chip away at the diversity issues. So if you look at the IBA board, for example, they finally have one female member out of 6 on the board. And that's Corinna from Prancing Pony. But really that was kind of actually, that's a bit of a
Long overdue.
Long overdue. And she's really lovely. And it's in a small state where there aren't that many huge players, but let's just not underestimate the value of that.
Definitely.
So I think
just add to that. Yeah, I would just add to that if I was speaking to people who want to start the journey of brewing or want to move ahead in the journey of brewing or making of alcohol generally, is to just be brave and show up and be prepared to do the hard yards in terms of study, physical hard yards, because it's a very physical job, and believe in yourself that you're going to be good at this and as good as any of your colleagues. And look, that applies for any industry, but I see it a lot in brewing where the women hang back and the women won't do that, but the men step forward and offer and go. It's a bit like in the wine industry. You just got to go and do vintage for free. You've got to just reach out and ask, can I come and work here? Can I put on brew on with you there? Can I do a collab with you? And it's a space where you have to be very brave, because in some respects there are no rules. And so you've just got to be prepared to go and do that yourself. And as Kari said, one of the things I'm constantly encouraging our young brewers to do is to reach out and forge your own connections with other brewers, and particularly look out and forge connections with other female brewers. because together you'll be stronger as a group.
Thank you so much. That's really informative. And yeah, I've loved chatting to you both. You're both very inspiring ladies. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And Holly, be sure you stay in touch.
Thank you to both Kari and Rose for joining me today, and I hope to see even more females joining the craft beer industry. To everyone listening, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and if you've any questions, please let us know on our Facebook group, Beer Cartel's Craft Beer Collective. If you'd like to continue to stay up to date with the latest from the craft beer industry, please hit subscribe at either iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. That's it for today. I'll see you next time.